We should all be even more excited about Cayden Lindstrom than we already are. Why is that? James Tubb from Medicine Hat News is here to tell us on today's Locked On Blue Jackets.
You're Locked On Blue Jackets, your daily podcast on the Columbus Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Blue Jackets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am, as always, your host Jay Foster, here to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about your favorite team and mine, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Before we get started, I want to thank everyone for making this your first listen of the day every single day. Locked On Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms and over on YouTube. Also, after the internet, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Playoffs have wound down. The sports have stopped sporting. But this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster or bonus every day. That's right. There's something for everyone every single day all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Like I said at the top of the show, we're talking about Cayden Lindstrom today. And I figured who better to talk about him than someone who has watched him play all season long? So I'm talking to James Tubb, a reporter for Medicine Hat News, all about Cayden Lindstrom as a player, Cayden Lindstrom as a person, and what his future looks like for both the Medicine Hat Tigers and the Columbus Blue Jackets. So I'm just going to get right into my conversation with James. I figured the best way to learn a little bit more about Cayden Lindstrom was to talk to some people that got to watch him game in, game out, all season long. So I have got James Tubb with me today, a reporter who covers the Medicine Hat Tigers. We're going to talk a little bit about Cayden Lindstrom as a player, Cayden Lindstrom as a person, what we're expecting to see from him next year, and all that kind of fun stuff. So thanks for coming to join me today, James. And I'm excited to get into it about Lindstrom because I loved this pick for the Blue Jackets.
Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me, Jay. Much appreciated. And yeah, I knew whatever team took him was going to be very excited to see Cayden Lindstrom. And yeah, it was nice to see him get picked nice and high there at 4.
Yeah, for sure. He was maybe number 2 on my personal draft board. It sounds like he was number 2 on the Blue Jackets draft board. But let's kind of get into Lindstrom as a player. Like, what are we getting when Cayden Lindstrom steps on the ice?
It's been amazing to see the growth in Cayden's game, and I guess the easiest way to put it is a Eric Lindros light. And I know that's a really high comparison. I don't like doing NHL comparisons, but it is. He's a player who's learned his physicality and how to use it, and maybe the only thing he's learned to temp it back, or in the NHL, he'll probably be right where he's fine where he is, and he can score. He's got a sneaky playmaking ability that I think we're going to see a lot more this season and maybe the next than we have before, but he's just a natural athlete, too. A couple times, just seeing him, he's come out to do media without a shirt on. I'm like, can you please? Like, you make me look bad, Cayden. Go put a shirt on. No, he's a natural athlete. He's determined, confident, and, yeah, the Blue Jackets got a really good player, high drive, and he can put the puck in the back of the net like nobody else. One of the best shots I've seen.
Awesome. Well, the Blue Jackets definitely need a goal scorer, so we love to hear that. Obviously, he was injured for a decent part of last season, but he still managed to put up 46 points in 32 games, and that feels like that was a down year for him. How do you see him kind of bouncing back next year?
I think it's so hard, Jay, because I haven't seen a healthy Cayden Lindstrom play since December. Right, he got hurt coming back from Christmas. That's when he hurt his hand, and then the back kind of came up after that. It was kind of secretive, and I get that, drafts all around that. But he says he's healthy now. He's on the ice a whole bunch, and I think coming back now with the confidence of being drafted, he's going to take whatever he gets from the Blue Jackets. However, if they get any regular season games before he ultimately does come back, which I think we've both talked about, we believe he'll be back in Medicine Hat next season, and then I think he's going to keep going up the center of the ice. He's probably might lead the league in face-off wins, and I think we're going to see more of that playmaking ability, and he might score 50 goals next season. He plays in all 68 games. Well, probably won't play in all 68. He'll probably go play in the World Juniors for Canada. It's in Ottawa next fall. But I think we're just going to see that next level of Cayden the growth that we've seen, from his rookie season to last year in a little bit, and then to next year. I think it's just going to be, he's just going to keep getting better and better, and Blue Jackets fans are going to salivate and want him there sooner than later. But it's going to be fun to watch from afar for you guys.
Yeah, for sure. And I assume that he will probably be there for most of preseason. He might get a couple of regular season games just to see how he does. But yeah, I'm expecting to see him back in Medicine Hat, and I'm expecting him to dominate the WHL. You know, especially if he manages to stay healthy, if he manages to play in all of the games. I'm not super up on the competitiveness of WHL teams kind of as relative, apart from, obviously I know that Moose Jaw was dominant this year. Blue Jackets fans are very familiar with that team. Are we expecting Medicine Hat to be competitive next year, and especially more so if Lindstrom returns?
If Lindstrom comes back, they are the best team in the WHL, and it's not an exaggeration. It's not homerism covering them every day. They just are. He's a 4th overall pick. Teammate Andrew Basha went 41st to Calgary. He's a good player as well. Tomas Mercic was drafted this year, and that's all kind of glossing over the projected 1st overall pick in 2026, Gavin McKenna, who won Rookie of the Year in the WHL and CHL this year. It was Craig Button that said he could have went 2nd overall in this year's draft, and he's still 2 years away from being drafted. So the offense that they have and the depth they have through the lineup, they are going to be the best team, or projected to be the best team in the WHL. You never know what can happen, right? We saw this year the Saskatoon Blades, ultimately the Moose Jaw Warriors, led by Denton Matejchuk, won it all. But they are. It's their year to win, and they know that. And I think that's all the talk's going to be from Lindstrom and the rest of the team, is that we got to win while this group's here.
Yeah, exactly. And I feel like there's a lot to be said because the Blue Jackets are probably going to be better this year than they were last year. It would be hard to be much worse, but we're being positive, But I think there's something to be said for sending Lindstrom back to Medicine Hat and being like, okay, you be the guy in the WHL, you dominate, you win it all with your team, because you see guys that learn to win early. They come to the NHL and they're like, right, I already know how to do this. And so I think that's a really valuable learning experience for someone like Lindstrom, who, we've heard stories about, what a great person he is. And I want to talk about that in a little bit here. But like what a great leader he is, and, all of that. And I think him being the guy in Medicine Hat and potentially, knock on wood, leading this team to a WHL title, championship.
And it is kind of, I know, just an aside, Medicine Hat fans were scared seeing Lindstrom going to Columbus, only because Cole Sillinger got drafted there 2 years ago.
We did accidentally steal.
Didn't come back. Yeah, didn't come back. It worked out in the end. I mean, Tigers only had 11 wins that season. It was a tough season, but they get Gavin McKenna. So I think they've come to terms with it. But no, it's perfect opportunity here for Lindstrom to come back, try to get that championship here. Like I said, probably going to go play in the World Juniors, try to win with Canada. It is just that time for him to, all right, you're drafted now. Show us why we drafted you. And it's his perfect opportunity to show why he's that guy and keep growing. It's been amazing. His rookie year, Jay, he came into this league in the WHL, and he was talented. Put the puck in the back of the net. He was making those plays. Hadn't really embraced the physicality that we've seen in the highlights, or obviously Blue Jackets fans have come to love. And that was kind of learned from an overager in Dallin Moline. He learned that you should use your physicality. You're 6'4", Cayden. You're a big guy. Use it. And he found that next level. He was a Rookie of the Year nominee that year, and obviously took off last year. And there's a reason he was picked 4th overall. But if that's the growth he can learn in, 60 games, what's a full season going to look like? And I think that's going to be big for him this season, is just where he takes that next step with championship aspirations. And I think there's a lot to be excited about.
Got more of my conversation with James in just a minute, but first, I'm going to talk about FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games, and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want. All I've got to do is open the app, dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood, and this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus every single day. That's right, there's something for everyone every day all summer long. Head on over to FanDuel.com/lockedon. Start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Yeah, definitely. And that's something that I think is really enticing to a lot of Blue Jackets fans specifically is the Blue Jackets over the past little while have kind of drafted smaller skill guys, which I'm more than okay with. I think that's kind of the way the league is going. But drafting someone like Lindstrom, who has that size, who has that kind of I always get laughed at when I say this on the show, but he has a little bit of like snarl to his game. And that's something that the Blue Jackets don't really have. Like Fantilli has it a little bit, but not in the way that Lindstrom has, I don't think. And so I'm excited to add like another dimension to like this young core that the Blue Jackets are developing here.
And by the time Lindstrom comes in, Fantilli will have 2, maybe 3 years, probably just the 2 ahead of him, right? And can teach him back and like the center core between Fantilli and then Lindstrom, what he can learn from him and Sillinger as well. And that's going to play big for the Blue Jackets. And if Lindstrom moves to the wing, as we've seen talked about, maybe to start, he would go to the wing and then go to center. But yeah, he's going to be great for the depth there in Columbus and eventually going to be that number 2 guy, hopefully for a long time.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I wanted to talk about next, actually, is lots of conversation about, well, even if he doesn't pan out as a center, like his ceiling is top 6 winger. How do you kind of see that? Is that, like you mentioned there a little bit of like starts at the wing and moves to center? Do you think that his end game is second or potentially even first line center? I feel like the him and Fantilli are going to be a real kind of 1A, 1B situation if they both pan out as well as everyone is kind of expecting them to. Do you see him as a center in the NHL long term?
I do, only because the way the kid wins faceoffs. He was one of the top in the league last year as a 17-year-old. It was crazy the way he would win faceoffs against 20-year-olds, and I think he'll just further develop that with a healthy back. I mean, how many more faceoffs can he win now, right? And that's what I think will keep him at center. He's got to maybe learn a little bit more defensively the center role, which is I'd love to see a prospect that hasn't had to learn that, right? Learn the defensive part of the game more, but I could see them moving to the wing, only because he's a young guy. But I think he will end up as a centerman, and I think he will be that 1A, 1B with Fantilli. Maybe 1 year Lindstrom will lead the team, and then Fantilli will take it the next kind of thing. And yeah, I think the Blue Jackets got their 1-2 up the middle now.
Yeah, it feels very much, and I've been saying this a lot, and I don't want to compare them to these players specifically because I think they are very different players, but it feels very much like the early days of in Pittsburgh where it was Crosby, and then Crosby got off the ice, and Evgeny Malkin got on the ice. And you're like, oh, well, now I have to deal with this guy. It's kind of similar of, oh, well, now Fantilli's gone, great. Lindstrom gets on the ice now. That's a whole different set of problems. It's just, I don't know. I am so excited about this. I know everyone was kind of like, well, what if they take Demidov? Like, that kind of talent is hard to pass up. But it's so enticing to have this kind of, the Blue Jackets have maybe never had 2 centers as good as Fantilli and Lindstrom are right now, and they are 18 and 19 years old. Which I think tells you a lot. It tells you more about the Blue Jackets as a franchise than about these 2 players. But like, I don't know, center depth is just something that the Blue Jackets have never had, and they're so close to getting it right now, and it's really, really exciting.
I thought of the same comparison with the Crosby Malkin. I didn't want to make it. I'm glad you made it. Now it's on you.
It's fine. They'll yell at me in the comments. I don't care.
Yeah. No, I thought of the same thing, and it is kind of that you want to be able to roll out those 1s, 2s, and when Lindstrom gets there and takes in that role, that can only help Cole Sillinger, right? It's a little less responsibility on him, and we can see him flourish as we saw with those winning teams in Pittsburgh, where obviously lines 1 and 2 did their job, but it was that third line, that HBK line. I'm sure Blue Jackets fans aren't a big fan of that HBK line, but right, they needed that line, and that's kind of how they won. So if that's the role Sillinger could play, then it's that center depth Columbus has long needed, and it's exciting. It's a project with Lindstrom, right? He's not going to be in right away, and year 1 he might not be the most dominant, but he's going to be at some time.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I've been trying to preach to kind of just anyone who will listen, really, is that, we're being patient. We're tempering our expectations. We're not expecting him to walk into the league in October and immediately become like the next Patrice Bergeron or the next Sidney Crosby or whoever,
Yeah.
He's going to do another year in Medicine Hat. I could see him coming over at the end of Medicine Hat season, depending on how far they go in the playoffs, the Memorial Cup, etc. And then maybe starting in the AHL the year after that and kind of going from there. But, this is a player that I think you don't want to rush. because if you let him advance at his own pace, you let him develop like that, he's going to walk into the league in 2026 maybe, and just tear it into pieces.
Yeah, and I think Don Waddell's going to play a big role in that,
Mhm.
right? And I don't know. I've never really interacted with either of them, either him or Jarmo Kekalainen, but Waddell, I feel like slow rolls prospects a little bit more, and the Blue Jackets are in that spot where it's been a painful couple of years, and what's another couple, right? But to let the young guys grow and to try to become that next Tampa Bay Lightning or a team like that, right? Slow roll your guys and reap the benefits later.
Yeah, and it helps as well, I think. And I'll talk about this in a later episode. But a couple hours before sitting down to record this, Blue Jackets signed Sean Monahan to a deal. He's probably going to be it's a little longer than I would like, a little more expensive than I would like. But having him on the team as a legitimate veteran center who knows how to win faceoffs, which again is something the Blue Jackets haven't had in a while. Having him there to help guys like Fantilli, guys like Lindstrom grow, I think is going to be really fun. And I want to talk about kind of Lindstrom's growth in a little bit more detail. I every time I got to watch him play, and I didn't get to watch him play a lot because time zones are weird. I spend most of my time back in the UK, as my listeners know, and so Medicine Hat games start at like 2 a.m. for me, so it's not super feasible. So I watch when I can. But every time I watched Lindstrom, I was like just blown away by his skill, his like knowledge of the game. What do you think is like his biggest thing that he needs to work on, like this summer and then maybe going into next year in Medicine Hat? What would you want him to improve on to take that next step forward?
I think it would be, he's got a wonky skate stride, so I think continuing to work with that, and that's, he gets up the ice and down, up and back pretty quick. That's not an issue. Maybe the defense and just adding that to his game, right? We're going to see more of the playmaking that has kind of gone underrated with his shot and the physicality. So, but I think it would be, just the all aspects of the game, kind of rounding out his game a little bit more. He really didn't play that like a high level of hockey until he went to the Delta Academy at, I believe it was 14, right? So he's still learning on maybe some of the stuff that other guys got to learn early, but just keep getting better. I guess it's easy. I don't have one thing to pinpoint here, Jay. I apologize for that, but I think it is just rounding out his game and just frankly playing a full season here and seeing what he can do with that playmaking and just adding a little bit more defense as well to his game.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like that's a really good sign. If you're like, well, I can't spot anything in his game that like needs a ton of work, and a lot of it does sound to me like it's just, oh, okay, this is something that's just going to get better with reps. I know there's I did a little bit of like prospect research while I was doing my draft prep, because I was like, oh, Blue Jackets are getting a lottery pick again. Guess I'll look at some of the top guys, and some of them, you look at some of these first round picks and you can kind of pinpoint, oh, you need to work on your skating, you need to work on your like off puck awareness, blah blah blah. But Lindstrom, it feels like he just needs to keep playing and keep doing what he's doing and getting those reps in. It's not anything that he's going to have to like specifically go away and learn how to do. It's just continuing to take those steps, if that makes sense.
Yeah, the only he's got great work and great coaches here with Willie Desjardins, obviously a veteran in the NHL, and associate coach Joe Fraser, who I believe we're going to see in the NHL someday, behind the bench. And they've been working with him a lot, and just in practice going, okay, you did the drill right, but let's do it better, kind of thing, right? And just finding that next level. And maybe the only thing I didn't mention was just the emotional maturity, and that's something against Cayden, but he's, with the physicality that he's learned, sometimes a red mist comes up and he gets a little, he takes a penalty when he didn't need to have to. So maybe it's that, and it's just learning, when you can push and when you can't. And that would maybe be, if I had to circle one thing, that'd be the biggest thing I'd want to see him grow on, is just that, when to hold back on a retaliatory hit or something like that. Just, hurt them the other way. Go put the puck in the back of the net.
For sure. Which, like, he's 18. He's 18 now. Yeah. Like, I remember what I was like at 18, so that's something that I am not worried about at all. I agree. It needs to work, but I think as he gets older, he's going to, get a little bit a better hold of that emotional maturity. And I want to kind of finish off by talking a little bit about, I feel like we've got a pretty good look at Lindstrom as a player. And I know when I was talking to you as we were kind of setting this up, you said he's a great player and an even better person. And I want to talk about that a little bit because I wasn't present at the draft, but one of my colleagues here at Locked On was. He sent me the post-draft press conference with Lindstrom, and I was just kind of blown away by like how well-spoken he is and how like he just seems like a really great kid. So could you kind of speak to that a little bit, kind of that side of it, of the off-ice part of Lindstrom?
He's a great kid, and he's, believe it or not, he's kind of shy. I'll be honest. He's coming out of his shell a little bit more, but he is shy, and he's learning kind of where he fits into things and how to handle things, and just he's really nice. And he scored the Tigers teddy bear toss this goal. So with that, Tigers go take the teddy bears to the hospital here in Medicine Hat, and they deliver some teddy bears, and it's usually a thing for the assistant captains and the captains to go. And this was the first year that they took the teddy bear goal scorer, and Lindstrom went. He was a little bit shy and timid, but then he kind of embraced it and was giving teddy bears out. And there was an older gentleman he was talking to, and he was like, "Lindstrom, I recognize you," because they all listened to the games on the radio. And he's like, "You're really good." And Cayden was just like, "Oh, thanks." And then they talked a little bit more. And no, he is a great kid. And I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about his mom and his grandma. Obviously, Cayden talked a lot about draft night, how that was a big part of for him, and coming up just a single parent home and leaving home at a young age to go far away, and then even further away in Medicine Hat. He's had to grow a lot, like emotionally, away from his mom, and that hasn't been easy for him. But he's kind of accepted it, and he's flourished, frankly, and he's starting to find his own. And I think the confidence is just going to grow more and more off the ice, and that can only help on the ice. And no, he is a great kid. They got a good person in Columbus and an even better player.
Yeah, it's always great to hear, like that. I know people are like, I don't care about the locker room, just win games. But something that, I work with a hockey team back home, and something that's always really important when we're building the team at the start of the season is good locker room, because good locker room means good results on the ice and bringing in good people as well as good players. And so it's something that, Columbus has started to build, I think, a really good core of young players that are also like Lindstrom. They are, good people. They're maturing well, and they're kind of all going to grow up and grow into themselves together, which is always really great to see. And so having to, adding someone like Lindstrom into that mix is really great to see. I think.
I was going to say, I don't know if like the Blue Jackets must love the WHL, right? With Matejchuk, Lindstrom now, and then they added like Brandon's Charlie Ellick. Who else did they?
Evan Gardner.
Right? Yeah, the three dub guys there, and that doesn't hurt either, right? For Lindstrom or Matejchuk, they know these guys. They played against them, battled with them, and it does help when you have those little pockets of players that know each other before they get to the Blue Jackets. Then it makes things easier as they get there and start growing and, trying to win that ultimate goal in the NHL.
Yeah, 100%. And I know that Lindstrom is friends with current Blue Jackets, Kent Johnson, Jake Christensen as well, which helps. And yeah, it's the Blue Jackets love to draft from the dub, like Denton Matejchuk, for example. The year before that, I believe, was Stanislav Svozil, who was in Regina, yeah. So they have they do love to go from the WHL, which I like, because I think it's I don't know that I'm supposed to have favorites of the leagues, but I like the WHL the most out of the three CHL leagues. I think it's maybe not the best one, but it's the one that I find the most entertaining to watch. And I think the Blue Jackets have had some really great players come out of the WHL and just kind of out of Western Canada in general. So you love to see.
I grew up watching the OHL, and now I work covering the WHL, and I think the WHL is the better league, I think. And yeah, as you mentioned, they've produced a lot of top talents, and here's another one in Cayden Lindstrom.
Yeah, 100%. We're gonna have to get you back on the show when Lindstrom's done the preseason in Columbus, maybe done a couple of games, and we'll talk to you then about what you expect from Lindstrom. But I appreciate you hopping on today, giving everyone just a little bit more inside information on a guy like Cayden Lindstrom. And I know that I didn't think it was possible. I'm even more excited for what we have potentially got in a player like Lindstrom. So where can people, if people want more information on Cayden Lindstrom, or if they want to follow the Medicine Hat Tigers a little bit more closely next year, where can people find you and your work online?
For sure. the Medicine Hat News. It's as spelled as it sounds on Google, or on my Twitter. It's still Twitter to me, or X, whatever you want to call it.
It's
Reporter
Twitter
Tubb.
here.
Yeah, it's Twitter. Okay, Reporter Tubb with 2 B's, and yeah, we're obviously going to have a lot on Cayden this year with a full season, and with the Tigers, it should be an exciting year and lots of fun stories to come.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming to chat.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jay.
And that's all I've got for today. Tomorrow, we will catch up on free agency, maybe look at if the Blue Jackets have made any more signings. Development camp has started. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. That's all going up on tomorrow's episode of Locked on Blue Jackets. Thank you for listening to this episode, for making it your first listen of the day every single day. Locked on Blue Jackets is free and available on all podcast platforms. We are over on YouTube and on Sirius XM. You can find me on Twitter at _Jacob Foster, JAKOBFORSTER. You can find the show at LO_Blue Jacket on Twitter. And if you have comments, questions, criticisms, you can email me at lockedonbluejackets@gmail.com. Thank you once again for listening. And until tomorrow, make sure you stay locked on.